and this is our weekly sub-series, short takes, sustainable short takes and updates. I'm JJWalsh in Hiroshima, Japan, and
Hi, I'm Tove Joy, and I'm in Yokohama, just outside Tokyo.
And we usually talk about some of the issues that have been on our radar or we've been inspired by recently in terms of sustainability in Japan. We've got lots of great content to introduce today. And then at the end of our 30 minutes, for the last 5 minutes, we'll have some book recommendations. We are avid researchers and readers, right?
Yes, we'll try to be. Certainly fitting it in between everything else is a challenge, but love doing it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about mental health a couple weeks ago, right? And something that really helped me is actually having a physical book before I go to bed instead of going straight from screen to sleep. I wasn't sleeping very well, but if I have a book and read a couple pages, even if I'm exhausted before I sleep, it really helps. Have you found that as well?
It's something that I always used to do. I mean, I'd always lie in bed and read before I went to sleep. And I haven't done it for a long time. I've got out of that habit. But when we were talking about it a few weeks back, you reminded me I should do it. And you've just reminded me again, I need to do that because I do have a tendency, I think, like many others at the moment, when there's so much going on and you're on your screen until the last minute and then you get into bed and I just find I'm lying there with my brain pinging in all directions, processing stuff, and it would be good to have that downtime, I think. So I will be applying that, and please hold me accountable.
Yeah, I'll ask you about that every time
Yes,
to make sure that you're doing it. Just an announcement. I have a great talk tomorrow with Roger Ong, who is the editor-in-chief at Zenberg Media. And it is an online website really focused on sharing insights about sustainable innovation happening around Japan. And I have a couple examples that I'm going to talk about, which are from Zenberg today. So they're really doing a great job. I talked to the founder, Yu Kato, before in the series, and this is now the editor of the English section, Zenberg. So that'll be a really great discussion tomorrow.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Now, Tove, you had a very interesting topic. I think it's kind of connected in some ways to mental health, but also diversity and inclusion, talking about neurodiversity and inclusion, right. Understanding it in terms of mental health and those differences as well. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, thank you. So this is a topic, I mean, I think a lot of people probably have heard the word neurodiversity. It's sort of a bit of a buzzword going around in recent years, but perhaps might not have much understanding of what it really means. But it's something that's kept coming up again and again recently in the work that we do. So a big focus, or the main focus of the work I do, is with sustainability, cultural change, and leadership development. But we also do a lot on, and certainly our sort of background, if you like, is in different types of diversity, leading for diversity. And there's a program we've been doing with one of our big clients, one of Japan's biggest IT companies, for 5 years now. We've been doing the same program for 5 years with all their mid to senior management, and they all have to go through it. They can't avoid it. And it's been fascinating in that time to see how the cultural makeup of the company has changed. So it's a fairly young company compared to many of its Japanese peers. And although they hire a lot of sort of freshmen, as you'd call them, straight out of university, they also hire a lot of mid-career people. And that is bringing a lot of different types of diversity into the company. And we've noticed, certainly in the last sort of few years, as the groups are getting more and more diverse, and you're getting people coming from different companies and different countries as well, that there's a lot of that type of diversity too, that we're seeing more and more people bringing very different perspectives to the company, to the work that they're doing. And there are pros and cons to that, right? Because working with diversity is not easy. We tend to feel comfortable with people who look like us, who talk like us, who share a lot of the same opinions and values. So when you're working with people who challenge those things, who bring a different perspective, it can be uncomfortable. It can be a little bit disconcerting. How do you work effectively together? And so we've been seeing a lot of the challenges, and the program is designed to help them recognize those and also look at ways to work through it. But then I came across that article, I think, on The Beautiful Truth, which is a very interesting publication that looks at some, different topics going on in the world. And they did this article on neurodiversity and the benefits that can bring to companies, to societies, also the challenges. So looking first at the challenges, if you've got people like Greta Thunberg that you just showed the picture of there, who is diagnosed with having Asperger's, or sort of on the autism spectrum there, there are often social misunderstandings about, how do people like this interact with others, and what are their personalities like? And then challenges like sensory overloads. For some people, they might be very sensitive to noise or light and touch. So modern workplace settings can be really difficult places to work. And concentration, they might not be able to sort of cope very well with the usual 9 to 5. But then they were looking at, okay, so those are the challenges, but what are the benefits? And the creativity and the different perspectives that this kind of neurodiversity can bring to companies is phenomenal. And you've got an example in the article of GCHQ in the US actively recruiting people with dyslexia and autism, because they bring such a different look at big sort of important issues around security, or things like this, that the sort of the more neurotypical people just wouldn't even think to bring up. So they might have incredible analytical skills, or be brilliant with numbers, which is completely my biggest weakness. So I could really appreciate someone like that. I come from a family of dyslexics. We're on both sides of the family. A lot of people have dyslexia. But although there have been challenges coming up through the very typical education system, they've actually all done very well, having found the thing they can excel in. So I think it's interesting to look at beyond the kind of typical diversity that we talk about. We talk a lot about gender diversity, which is incredibly important, and LGBTQ, and physical disabilities. But there's a lot of diversity under the surface that we don't see, might not necessarily be aware of or think about, that can create challenges if we don't know how to deal with it, but also can be incredibly powerful. And looking at the big issues we're facing around, climate and social issues, we need all the diversity and perspectives we can get to solve these issues.
Absolutely. What an interesting and important study, and an important way to start thinking about people and the skills that they bring, not just stereotypically thinking, well, they're like that, so they have to fit like that, right?
Yeah.
I had a really interesting discussion with Tony Vega, who is the founder of Japan Kyo, and he's legally blind. And when he came to work on the JET program, he was working in a school for the blind. And he said how basically all the students were given just 2 career paths, like really limiting in what they were like being trained to go on and do after school. And he has shown that you don't need any limitations. He's doing podcasting, he's a content creator. Like there's a lot of different careers you could go on to. So it's not doing society any benefit either by having such a narrow limitation on people. Let's really find out where their skills are, where they can really be a benefit to our business, our society, our community in more ways than how we've only thought about it very narrowly so far, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, aligns absolutely with the SDGs, the purpose of, creating these goals to leave no one behind, right? And no one means no one at all. It shouldn't be, sorry, you're not typical, you don't fit the standard profile. of the employee that we want for this. We've got to look beyond that. And yes, it might mean that company cultures and hiring practices and development processes need to change, and that's a good thing. That's an opportunity for for doing things better. So I think, yeah, this is a topic that needs much more looking at from society side and also a business perspective.
And trial and error and research, like let's try a diverse group of people in different kinds of roles and see what happens, and reassess and see what we need to do to make it better for them as well as for
Yeah,
the operations, right? I think
absolutely.
yeah, in terms of
Mhm.
sustainability, there's a lot of great assessment and research we could do there.
Yeah, I think so. And it was really great to see, a lot of the workshops we've had with this client recently, where the groups are just getting more and more diverse year by year. And there was one group really that stood out, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where there was quite a lot of sort of cultural diversity in the different nationalities in the group. That was one thing. But there was also, people of different ages. There was quite an age range. We had the youngest was probably around 30 up to sort of mid late 50s, coming from very different work backgrounds as well. And the quality of output we were getting on topics like trust. How do you build trust in a work environment? How do you communicate effectively when you've got people who have very, very different approaches and preferences? And the quality of output we were getting from that very diverse group was incredible. And it was just such a step up when we think back to the beginning, when the groups that we were getting were generally pretty much all the same nationality, mostly men, mostly sort of mid 50s and up. And you think, wow, that the difference that makes, and the thinking that brings to a company, that's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Switching gears a little bit, different focus. I had a great conversation with founder Ian Urbina, who is an amazing journalist who started the Outlaw Ocean Project, and the Outlaw Ocean book is what he wrote, following on his many years working at New York Times and other publications, covering stories that aren't often covered about the ocean. And one
Mm,
of the really interesting stories, that there's so many connections to people, planet, profit, that it was such a great and horrifying example.
mm,
In the Outlaw Ocean Project website, you can see it under the smell of money. And it's all about fish farming, which definitely affects Japan. We have a lot of new fish farming operations happening all over the world. This one was about fish farming in China and how it relates to create operations for making fish meal. Now, fish
mm,
farming, in the ideal sense, when it was created because we know we have an overfishing problem. We have a lack of wild fish. So they said, well, let's start raising fish near shore, and then we can have, local produce where we need it. Great. But then they wanted to, similar to the meat industry, what happens with the meat industry when you go scale, you want to
mm,
fatten up the fish quickly. How do you do that? Oh, you have to feed them fish meal, which is made of fish. Where does that fish come from? Big factories being set up by China in Africa. And this area that has all these new fish factories, it's taking a lot of the local fish, overfishing that area, making fish meal, creating pollution there, sending the fish meal to China where it's fed the farmed fish. And it's an insane situation.
mm.
You're creating a bigger problem than there was
Yeah.
before, right? And you're taking away the chance for the local villages to have any kind of decent tourism industry, which they had before.
Mm,
They have new pollution problems, and a lot of the fishmongers there were women who were doing the fish trade there. So you're losing that. income for not only the women doing it, but their families and their community, because we know that when women earn money, it benefits society so much stronger, right? Because they're so embedded with children and their activities in the community. So just horrible situation. And it connects to my book idea for today about the Lorax, which I'll introduce now because it's so connected.
Yeah.
So it's a children's book by Dr. Seuss, but in so many ways, this story and so many other stories that he was talking about is so exactly straight from the Lorax. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. It's causing so much damage. It's not gonna last. It's only for the short term for profits, right? So everybody go read the Lorax. I know you didn't read it since you were a child. It's worth reading again.
Exactly. I think it's such a wonderful book, and it's one of those things that you can read or you can watch the animated version as well. And I think you can watch it with your kids, and they will take it at one level, but you can watch it again as an adult and get it at a completely different level, and really see, like you say, how that ties into the issues we're dealing with today, with sustainability, with not looking at the bigger picture and the ripple effects of what we're doing. And I know I've harped on about this probably in every talk we've done so far, but ecosystem thinking, that if we're just looking at one thing, like we need more fish, we need them close to the shore, fish farming, yeah, that makes sense, great, fine. But you're not looking beyond to see, okay, well, like you say, where does that come from, the fish meal, and how is that impacting communities? Unless you zoom out and you take that wider view, the problem is that, well, you're probably creating a bigger problem, as you said. And I think the Lorax illustrates that so beautifully, right? With cutting down the trees, and it's causing dirt and whatever. So they're solving one problem, but then creating a much bigger one. But because they're messaging it very, very cleverly, people drink it in and don't see the negative side of that. So no, it's
then
very
creating a place that nobody wants to live. So
right.
you're benefiting only a few with high profits for a very short time, and then it's toxic. Nobody can live there. And then you're creating geopolitical problems. If you're taking away the local food, but also making it impossible for people to live there, that's how a lot of people become migrants. And we have a huge international migration problem. So we really have to think long term, and we really have to think circular. Like, how do all of these things negatively affect something else? And when we have global influence from global industries like this, it becomes really hard to see that circularity, right? But if we research, and thankfully places like Outlaw Ocean are researching for us and making it more clear, right?
Yeah, because it is a big issue, and particularly, for a lot of the big global companies, they have incredibly complex supply chains. I mean, we've talked previously about chocolate and coffee and things like that, but any large global manufacturing company has an incredibly long and complex value chain or supply chain, and the ripple effects of every part of that are very difficult to see. They're very difficult to track. And so we really, really need more data. And there are advances, happening in that. Blockchain is enabling better transparency, in a lot of industries, and hopefully that will continue to be a positive influence. But yeah, we also need data, like the kind of stuff that Outlaw Ocean is looking at, to say, look, we need to get the numbers on this to understand the impact we're having, and then we need to work out what we do about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You had a fabulous example in Japan, this farm canning organization. Tell us about it. It's awesome.
Right. Well, the topic is related to food waste. And this started off by, it was triggered a couple of days ago. I saw a trailer for an upcoming BBC documentary series called The Green Planet, with my absolute hero, Sir David Attenborough. And the trailer was just about weeds. And he was looking at, the Piccadilly Circus, where he is there in London, pretty hostile place for plants, you would think, but plants are finding a way. And he said very often, people see them in an environment like that, and it's like, oh, there's a weed, pull it out. And very often, with our gardens, we're conditioned to think that they need to be nice and neat and tidy, and anything that pops up that we haven't planted must be a weed, and we quickly pull it out again. But he was saying that, if we can reframe our mindset to look at weeds as pioneers that can actually thrive in places where other plants, really struggle, they create a foundation, then begin to create soil that can produce, then become a fertile place for other plants to grow, and that has a positive knock-on effect. And in the same vein, food as well, farm canning is great in that they take the kind of food that is often wasted because people see it as not useful, like a weed. They would say, okay, well, the tops of carrots and things like this, or they started by buying up what is called the ugly veg from local organic farmers who, the veg sometimes comes out looking a bit funny in the shape or whatever, or the skin finish is not perfect. And the shops often don't want to take that. They reject it, that it doesn't look beautiful, consumers won't like it. Sorry, it's worthless. And then all of a sudden you've got this huge waste for the farmers, which impacts them economically. But it's perfectly good food. So farm canning has been working with local farmers to buy up this food, turn it into gorgeous food. Their cans of sauces and things are absolutely wonderful. Highly recommend them. They're now selling in some shops, for example, Muji in Yokohama, and a few other places locally around Zushi, where they're from. So it's very much a local operation, but they also have their online shop. But the whole concept of looking at something that would ordinarily be discarded and saying, well, actually, we shouldn't be discarding this. We can look at it in a different way. It's, a weed might be a source of biodiversity, and an ugly veg could be a source. It doesn't have to look perfect to become a source, or the tops of vegetables and things that we might just chuck in our compost heap or in the bin or whatever. Those could actually be eaten if we know what to do with them. So that was, I love what farm canning's doing. And I think it helps us rethink what we're doing with waste and how much waste we're creating.
It's great to see this initiative. I'm so excited. I've reached out and I hope to get them on the show. It would be wonderful to learn more about what they're doing and how they got started. I love this graphic that they have on their Instagram. So from the farmer, you might have some unusual shaped vegetables, which might not be wanted by the local supermarket, especially in Japan. It's not quite there yet. You don't see anything that's not perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's make it into bottled things, and everything they use is reusable glass containers. They've got the idea of no single-use plastics and stuff as well, right? Yeah. Wonderful.
Absolutely. And actually, we've worked with them a few times before COVID when we were having face-to-face events. We've worked with them to have them as our caterers at events. And it's just what they can do with the so-called ugly veg is beautiful. I mean, there are some pictures on the website you can see from their catering side as well. So it's not just the sauces, it's just looking differently at these things, saying, well, how can we present them in a way that people are happy to eat and enjoy, and it tastes amazing. So highly recommend
awesome
it.
And I followed the link from their website. We'll put all the links below on the YouTube channel, anything we talk about today, just for reference. And I followed to their YouTube channel, and she's got some great cooking shows where she shows how they make some of this stuff. So that's definitely worth checking out too.
Definitely. And that kind of leads into my book recommendation as well, which you can see behind me here is the No Waste Vegetable Cookbook, which was one I think somebody recommended to me. I think it might have been John Walsh, the urban farmer, recommended a few years ago. And again, it just really helps you look at your veg differently, and rather than chopping off the top of your greens or your beet or your carrot or whatever and saying, okay, well, that goes straight in the namagomi or the compost or whatever, it's saying, well, actually, could I use this? Could I eat it? And so we've been experimenting based on some of the ideas in this book with some new recipes. Some of them still need a bit of work, but there's some great ideas. And one of the things that was I really loved was taking all of these bits, like the bits you peel off an onion that are, the sort of chewy if you cook them and you don't really want to eat them. But all of those bits and pieces, just boiling them up to make a stock, and then that's a soup base. And so you would actually take them out and they can go in the compost and they break down much more quickly because they've already been cooked. But also, what's left behind, the stock is a great starter for a soup. So lots of great ideas in there.
That's a great tip, isn't it? I love that. And then when you do, if you can compost your kitchen scraps after you've used them completely, they break down faster, right?
Yes, very much so. So it helps the composting process as well.
Fantastic. Oh, I just had a cough. Weird.
You're
Sorry.
all right.
It kind of leads into a talk I had, sorry, last week, this week actually, about EVs. And Kevin and Scott joined me. And Kevin has joined the series before talking about passive house. So the EV market is really exciting, how it's changing in Japan and more chargers and everything, right?
Yeah.
But also about good insulation, good building has led me on to finding this article on Zenberg about the Earth ship. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't, but it looks fascinating. Wow.
So it's a kind of a new idea for Japan. Very insulated. Every aspect of the design, capturing water, reusing waste, nothing is wasted. And it's also a guest house, so people can go and stay and kind of experience it for themselves. So it's really exciting to see what they're doing. You can see on their website about a lot of it was self-build. You can see them reusing tires as part of the foundation. There was another picture, I don't think I have it here, where the rain is captured from the roof. So you can see the windows bring in the natural light, the solar energy, of course, renewable energy.
Yeah.
But also when the rain falls, there's an area around the building which is like gravel.
Okay.
And
So
that catches the rainwater and filters it, and then you can use natural rainwater. So it's not only highly efficient, very environmentally friendly, but it also saves you money because you're not having to buy power, you're not having to buy water. So these ideas are so smart. And on the website, they were saying they would love to have it in other areas of Japan. This would be a perfect model for a lot of the rural area redevelopment that projects and people are thinking, how can we bring back life to this rural area? So these kind of building designs are so important to be thinking about, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's something I've personally been thinking about a lot because I would love to love to build something like that in the future as a kind of sustainability hub. It's a little dream that's been ticking away for a while. So I'll be looking more into earthships. I'm really interested to learn about the potential for that.
Definitely. John has joined from Facebook. We just mentioned you. He says the Earth ships are great. Awesome. And there's an American farmer near Mount Fuji, Fuji Jake, on Facebook, who builds similar houses with built-in greenhouses. Fuji Jake was on the series, and I've talked to him about rural redevelopment. It's really exciting to see more people trying this. And unfortunately, like they said for this one in Tokushima on Shikoku Island as well, they have to do a lot of work themselves because there aren't any builders or rebuild organizations in Japan who have the know-how yet. So hopefully, if the customer starts asking about it, hopefully the building companies will get people trained and ready to use these strategies as well in building. That would be wonderful to see.
Brilliant opportunity, isn't it, for the building industry to branch out, do something new.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just have a little bit less than a minute left. A little plug for SDG Seminar I'm doing this week. It's a national holiday in Japan on the 11th. And just for an hour in the morning, it's a free SDG seminar. This time we're talking about how sustainability can actually save you money. So that's our focus for this time. So if you're interested, I'll put the link below where you can register, and please join us. Also, please save the date for March 21st, as Tove and I are getting all of our schedule in order and getting all the details up. We will be having this wonderful Women Making Sustainability Work event in Tokyo, in Hiroshima, and online on March 21st from 9 to 5 is the plan right now. So please save the date, and we hope to see you there, whether it's in Hiroshima, whether it's in Tokyo, or online. We're going to have a lot of great information, wonderful speakers, workshops, and lots of hands-on experience as well, I hope.
Yeah, very much looking forward to that. And it's exciting to see it taking shape behind the scenes. So hopefully we'll be able to share more with that or with everybody very soon.
Yeah. Wonderful. And Tova, our next Short Takes Talk is next week, the 18th, right?
That's right. Friday, 9 o'clock. So we'll look forward to seeing everyone there.
Yeah, wonderful. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.